Today we're going to teach you how to make a Long Island, New York grandma style pizza. Now to make this dough, we're going to start out with about 430 grams of high gluten flour. If you don't have high gluten flour, just use bread flour. Now we're going to add our yeast. I like to use this instant dry yeast. Next comes the salt, and finally the sugar. Now we're going to take our whisk and just whisk all these dry ingredients together so it's mixed in really well. Now we're going to add our water right into the flour and our olive oil. We're going to use the paddle attachment and we're going to put it on speed 1 for about a minute or 2. As soon as the dough's not sticking to the sides anymore, that means that this phase of the mixing is finished. So we'll just shut it off. You can see that we're making a really wet, sticky dough, and that's exactly what we want. Having a dough this wet is going to give us a crust that's nice and crisp on the outside, but really light and airy on the inside. So we just push all of the dough off of the paddle, and you're going to get some of this dough on your hands when you do it. Don't worry about it. We have extra dough built into the recipe to account for some of that stickiness that's going to end up on your hands. Now we're just going to take our hand and squish it into a little bit of a dough ball, and now we're going to cover this with a damp paper towel for about 15 minutes. All right, now it's been 15 minutes, so we'll just take off our covering, and that 15-minute rest has given a chance for all those wet ingredients to absorb really well down into the flour. Now we're going to put on our spiral dough hook, and we're actually going to mix it for another 15 minutes with this attachment. It has been 15 minutes now, and this dough is done mixing. You can see that it doesn't look like a smooth dough ball by any means, and that's exactly how we want it. All right, so you just get all the remaining dough off of your hook, and you can see what we have here is a really wet blob of dough. That's exactly what we want. What we do is we just kind of scrape it all towards the center like this. Try not to let your hand stick to it too much. If you find that you work with these wet doughs a lot, you can get one of these things. It's called a dough whisk, and it just makes it a little bit easier to manipulate the dough. You certainly don't need it, but sometimes it can kind of come in handy if you're making this kind of dough a lot. And now we're going to do what's called a stretch and fold. That's exactly what it sounds like. We just put our hands in like this, try to get underneath it, and we just stretch it up like this and fold it over on itself. And then we turn it 90 degrees, get underneath it, stretch it up, and fold it over on itself. Just like that. What that does is it helps to build up the gluten strength in the dough. We're going to let it sit like this for another 15-minute rest, and then we're going to do another stretch and fold in 15 minutes, and then we'll be done. All right, another 15 minutes has passed by, and what we're going to do is one more stretch and fold, and then we're going to put this dough ball into our storage bag. So we just pull it up, stretch it, and fold it. Rotate 90 degrees, pull it up, stretch it, and fold it. Now we're going to take our storage bag, and we're going to fill it with a little bit of olive oil. That way it won't stick when we go to take it out. So to take out this dough ball, we're just going to kind of roll it to the edge, scoop it up, and put it right into our bag, just like so. If some of it sticks to your hands, it's okay. Push it down the sides of the bag, make sure it's coated, and that's it. So that's the process of making our dough. Now we're going to take this little dough ball and we're going to put it into the refrigerator for anywhere from 4 hours to 48 hours. The longer it goes into the fridge, the better. If you're enjoying the video so far, please click the subscribe button at the bottom of the screen and also click the like button. It really helps to support the channel. We're going to make a nice chunky rustic sauce for our grandma pizza using these nice San Marzano whole peeled tomatoes. Now when we use these whole peeled tomatoes, I like to take them out of the can one by one and just remove the stems as I'm putting them into the measuring cup. So we just pull out the little stem like this, and the rest we put into our sauce. Okay, perfect. Now we've got most of the stems out of the tomatoes, but some of the tomatoes are still a little bit too chunky, and so I need a helper to come and help break them up for me. Kyle? All right, so what you want to do with your clean hands, go in there and just kind of crush up the tomatoes so they're not quite so chunky.
Okay. All right.
There you
This
go.
feels weird.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. Also, what's like the difference between a grandma pizza and a Sicilian pizza?
So a grandma pizza has a lot thinner crust than a Sicilian pizza, and also the cheese goes down first with a grandma pizza with the sauce on top.
Okay.
So those are the two big differences.
But why is it called a grandma pizza?
So this guy who invented the pizza, his name is Umberto Corteo, and he invented the pizza a long time ago and wasn't quite sure what to call it. So he at first decided to call it a Sicilian grandma pizza, and later he just decided to call it a grandma pizza.
Okay.
How's it feeling?
It feels less chunky, but still it feels kind of weird.
Yeah, you should have some small chunks in it. It shouldn't be completely smooth, but most of the big chunks should be crushed down.
Yeah, it still has some big chunks.
Okay, we'll keep doing it until we get all the big chunks out of it.
All right. Yeah.
All right, now go wash your hands. Now with our tomatoes crushed up, finishing up the sauce is super easy. All we need is 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, crushed oregano, and if you happen to have any fresh basil leaves, feel free to rip those up and throw the chunks of basil leaves in there as well. Once it's all blended together, a couple pinches of garlic powder will finish it off. So the cheese that we're going to use for our grandma pizza is a whole milk mozzarella, and we're going to use this shredder to make really coarse, thick shreds of cheese. Now we're going to grate up a couple of cloves of fresh garlic. Okay, this is the sheet pan that we're going to use to bake our grandma pizza in. This one's 11 by 11. We'll have the recipe for the 11 by 11 as well as the 12 by 17 sheet pan size in the description below. In order to prep the pan, we're going to put some olive oil into the pan, and we just want to use the minimum amount of oil that we need. We don't want to dump a bunch of it in there like we would for a Detroit style pizza. If you don't have one of these silicone brushes, you can also just use a paper towel like this and use that to spread it on. When you get finished, the entire surface should be covered with oil, but there shouldn't be any puddles of oil in the pan. We're going to add a little bit more oil to the pan just before the bake, but we'll show you that later. All right, this is the dough that has been in the refrigerator for about 2 days, and it's been sitting out on my counter for about 2 hours now. You can see it's really puffed up a lot, and so we're going to slide it out onto our work surface. This is the easy way to do it. Just rip it right out of the bag. Now the recipe that we used makes enough for 2 pizzas, so we're just going to spread this out into a roughly rectangular shape, and then we're just going to use our dough divider to split it in half. So we'll use this one and we'll save the other one for the next pizza. Just grab your dough, transfer it into your pan, and start to spread it. At this phase it may not fill up the entire pan, and that's fine. We're just going to stretch it out, and then we're going to let it rest for a few minutes if it needs to, and we'll come back and we should be able to fill up the rest of the pan pretty easily. While it's resting, we can cover it with a piece of plastic wrap or a cookie sheet. It's been about 12 minutes now, so the dough has relaxed quite a bit. We're going to just put a little bit more oil on our fingertips, and we're just going to push it out the rest of the way to the edges of the pan. Just push from the areas of thicker dough to the areas of thinner dough. If you need to, you can also just pick up the dough like this and kind of stretch it out, and that'll get you to the edges really quick. Now we're going to take some of that fresh garlic that we had. We're going to sprinkle that on. Looks beautiful. Now we're ready for our coarsely grated mozzarella cheese. We'll put that in place and just kind of spread it out. We don't want to go too heavy with the cheese. Next, we'll add our nice chunky tomato sauce, and we're just going to put it down in little dollops in a rustic fashion. And the final step before it goes into the oven is to take some Italian seasoning and just sprinkle a little bit of that over the top. Now we're ready to go into the oven. We preheated the oven at 500 degrees. We're going to turn the oven down to 450 for the bake, and we're going to put it right down on the very bottom shelf. It's been about 15 minutes. Let's give it a look. We'll just check underneath. That looks just about right. If it's not there yet, what you can do is just take the pizza and lift it up, put it on the top shelf to finish up the top if the bottom's already done. I think I'll give it 1 minute on top, and I might even turn on the broiler. Here we go. Take it right out. I wish you could smell this. It smells absolutely amazing. We're just gonna lift up the pizza. We'll slide it right into the cooling rack. Okay, now we'll just slide that onto the serving tray. And to finish the pizza for serving, we're going to take a few more fresh basil leaves and tear those and put them on top. And then we're going to finish it with just a little drizzle of olive oil. And that's it, Long Island Grandma Pizza. That's going to do it for today's video. We hope that you make this grandma style pizza at home. It's amazing. And if you do, let us know how it went. Also, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. That really helps the channel a lot. Until next time, pizza out. So good.
Yeah, that's actually really good.